Welcome back to Visual Mind Academy. Today, we're exploring the Treaty of Versailles paradox from 1919, one of history's most devastating lessons about what happens when compromise becomes catastrophe. Let me paint you a picture. It's 1919. The bloodiest war humanity has ever seen has just ended. 10 million soldiers are dead. Empires have collapsed, and now 3 powerful nations gather around a table with one mission: to decide the fate of their defeated enemy. Here's the riddle. 3 nations stand over a defeated enemy. One demands revenge. One seeks justice. One wants peace. They draft a treaty that gives each what they ask for. 20 years later, the world burns again. What went wrong? Think about it for a moment. They each got what they wanted. They reached an agreement. They signed a historic treaty. So why did it fail so catastrophically? What's the flaw in their logic? What did they miss? The answer might surprise you. Here's the answer. They gave everyone what they wanted, but created something no one could live with. Revenge, justice, and peace cannot coexist in the same document. Let me break this down because this is profound. When you try to satisfy completely opposing goals in a single solution, you don't create balance, you create a monster. You create something that contains the seeds of its own destruction. Why does this answer matter? Because revenge demands punishment and humiliation. Justice demands fairness and accountability. Peace demands reconciliation and stability. These aren't just different, they're fundamentally incompatible when pushed to their extremes. Think about it in your own life. Have you ever tried to make everyone happy in a group decision? Your boss wants aggressive results, your team wants work-life balance, and you want innovation. So you create a plan that tries to give everyone what they want. What happens? You end up with a confused strategy that satisfies no one and achieves nothing. What's the hidden lesson most people miss? The lesson is this: not all desires can be harmonized. Sometimes trying to please everyone creates a solution that's worse than choosing one clear path. The Treaty of Versailles tried to be everything to everyone. It imposed crushing reparations on Germany to satisfy France's desire for revenge. It redrew borders to serve Britain's vision of justice and balance of power, and it included idealistic language about self-determination to satisfy America's dream of peace. But here's what they created: a treaty so harsh it humiliated Germany, yet not harsh enough to prevent them from rebuilding. Too punitive to allow reconciliation, yet too lenient to prevent resurgence. It was the worst of all worlds. How does this apply to your daily decisions? Every time you negotiate at work, every time you mediate a family conflict, every time you try to balance competing priorities, ask yourself, am I creating a real solution, or am I just patching together incompatible demands? Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say, these goals cannot all be met. We need to choose. Because clarity, even when it's difficult, is better than a confused compromise that plants the seeds of future disaster. Now let me tell you the true story behind this riddle, and trust me, it's more dramatic than any fiction. June 28, 1919, the Palace of Versailles, France, the same place where the German Empire had been triumphantly proclaimed 48 years earlier. Now it would witness Germany's humiliation. 3 men dominated the negotiations. Georges Clemenceau of France, a man who'd lived through Germany invading France twice in his lifetime. His mission was simple: make Germany pay, crush them, ensure they could never threaten France again. He wanted revenge, and he was unapologetic about it. David Lloyd George of Britain, walking a tightrope, he needed to satisfy his angry public who wanted Germany punished, but he also understood that Europe needed Germany as a trading partner and a counterweight to other powers. He wanted justice, but justice balanced with pragmatism. Woodrow Wilson of America, the idealist, he arrived in Europe like a prophet, preaching his 14 points, talking about self-determination, democracy, and a League of Nations that would end all wars. He wanted peace,
genuine, lasting peace built on fairness and cooperation. Each man fought for his vision, and in the end, they produced a 440-page treaty that tried to give all three what they wanted. The result? Germany lost 13% of its territory and all its colonies. They were forced to accept sole responsibility for the war, the infamous War Guilt Clause. They were ordered to pay 132 billion gold marks in reparations, a sum so astronomical it would take Germany until 2010 to fully repay. Their military was reduced to a token force. But here's the tragedy. It wasn't harsh enough to permanently disable Germany, yet it was harsh enough to breed rage and resentment. It didn't reconcile, and it didn't prevent rearmament. It just delayed it while fueling hatred. In Germany, a young war veteran named Adolf Hitler saw his moment. He had a ready-made narrative. Germany had been betrayed, humiliated, stabbed in the back. The treaty became his greatest recruiting tool. By 1939, just 20 years later, the world was at war again. A war that would kill 75 million people. A war that would consume Europe in flames and unleash horrors the world had never imagined. The three nations had gotten what they wanted in 1919, but they had created something no one could live with. The Treaty of Versailles didn't end the war, it just scheduled the next one. So what's the lesson for us today? First, beware of compromise that compromises everything. When you're making decisions in business, in relationships, in life, don't just ask, does this make everyone happy? Ask, does this actually work? Is this coherent? Can we actually live with this? Second, some goals are incompatible, and that's okay. The mature thing isn't always finding middle ground. Sometimes it's having the courage to say, we need to choose one path clearly, not try to walk three paths at once. Third, short-term peace bought by kicking problems down the road isn't peace. It's just postponed conflict with interest. The Treaty of Versailles teaches us that good intentions, historical grievances, and political pressure can combine to create something that satisfies everyone in the moment but solves nothing in the long run. Don't draft treaties in your own life, in your career, your relationships, in your plans that try to be everything to everyone. Have the courage to be clear, have the wisdom to be coherent, because a half measure that no one can live with is worse than a bold decision that at least gives you something to build on. That's the paradox of Versailles, and that's your lesson for today. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and leave your comment in the comment box below. What compromises in your life might be creating future problems? Share your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you.